Radio, leave it alone. Now, you think emerging writer, you think millennial, shiny young person with literary stars in their eyes, but of course, plenty of people take to writing in their later years. I'm still thinking about it. I haven't done anything yet, but Jen Hutchison is one of them. Not only has she written a book, get this, she's also decided to launch a publishing house for mature writers. A magnificent idea. Jen, welcome.
Thanks, Myf.
Come in nice and close to your microphone there, Jen.
There you
go. Motherling is your book, and it's about your life and journey after the death of your son, Rafe. Why do you think it took this devastating experience to bring forth the storyteller in you?
Well, I've been, like a lot of people and probably yourself too, I've been writing all my life. I've kept a journal and I've still got them since I was 15. They're pretty funny when you look back at them now, but the idea of expressing myself in words has been there all my life. I've had a corporate career. I've written lots and lots of submissions and grant applications and reports and so on. And then when I stopped working operationally full-time about 10 years ago, I decided I would commit my life to my writing. So I went to lots of writers' conferences, indulged myself all around the world and did lots of stuff with the Wheeler Centre and Victorian Writers' Centre, and gradually started to take the craft of writing seriously. And then this disaster happened in 2012 and, I lost about a year and a half. I walked the Camino. I journaled every day on the Camino, really because I promised myself I would keep track of where I had left these little sachets of ashes, of Rafe's ashes. And I did the Camino because he'd always wanted to do it but wasn't able to. And I didn't want, when I look back at some of those directions now, it's sort of like, 10 steps past the big tree over the fence of the road beyond. But I wanted my other 3 children to be able to repeat that process if they ever felt like it. So the book really wrote itself. I wasn't journaling to write a book. Yeah. I was journaling because I was journaling. And the book really wrote itself. It just became something that needed to be done, and so it's done.
Tell me about that journey along the Camino. It's a walking trail.
It is.
In Spain and Italy?
Spain and France.
Spain and France, I should say. Why did you take your son Rafe's ashes to the Camino?
Well, he, not as a teenager, late teenager, early 20s, when he was finishing university, wanted to go and walk on the Camino with a couple of his friends who were celebrating the end of their studies. But Rafe had been a bit of a rascal and had to do an intense summer school, so wasn't able to go. He was very angry with me at the time because I wouldn't pay his airfare. And so I hadn't known what the Camino was at that point. So the whole idea was just put on the shelf and didn't come back to me until after he died. And I was watching The Way, Martin Sheen's movie of The Way, which was never a book. It was based on somebody's story of the Camino. And I looked at it and thought, and that's the story of a father whose son is killed on the first day walking in the Pyrenees in France. In a freak storm, and the father goes and collects the ashes and walks the Camino, and from this pit of grief, and any mother who's lost a child of any age, it's a place beyond your own imagination in terms of suffering. I watched that movie and thought, what a clever idea! It is fiction, but it really resonated with me. And so I remembered then Rafe wanting to go, not being able to go. Nothing had happened in my mind around the Camino in the ensuing 10 years. And so the idea just came back, and I've in my life, I've been like a lot of mature age women. I've been daughter, sister, wife, mother. And like that old song says, I'd never really been to me.
I've been to paradise, but I've never been to me.
I've been to paradise a number of times and never been to me. And so the combination of ideas, the need to spend time on my own to find out who I really am when all the layers are peeled away, the need to commemorate my son's life and somehow work out in my mind whether I'd failed him, who I was when I wasn't. Was I still Rafe's mother when there wasn't a Rafe in front of me? What is this status of mother without child? What's the meaning of gone? I mean, when you lose a young person, I'd had him for 31 years, the privilege of being his mother for 31 years, and you've made it. As a parent, you've made it. He had played with recreational drugs, and it really angers me that we call them recreational drugs. What a disservice we do to our young people. But he'd played with drugs, and I thought he was through it. I think he thought he was through it. And so we had a long journey to go to get. I had a long journey to get myself to a point where I understood what gone meant. 1,000 million iterations of gone are delivered to you when there's that empty chair, that email that doesn't arrive, the phone that doesn't ring, and you see them everywhere and you hear their voice. And so I needed time to work through all of that. And I did. These ancient pathways, pilgrims of all sorts, religious or not, and I'm not particularly religious at all, have walked these pathways all through Europe, but they all end up in Santiago in the north of Spain, commemorating and searching, and it's the ultimate meditation.
Jen, I can't imagine your loss.
That's okay, neither can I.
No, I can't fathom the depths of grief that you would have experienced and your
Thanks,
family. Can you talk a bit about Rafe? What was he like?
A ginormous personality, a fabulous kid. I hope you can feel me grinning. A handful from the minute he was born. Couldn't keep him enclosed anywhere, neither a cot nor a high chair nor a pram nor... larger than life, an enormously intelligent young man who pushed the boundaries every step of the way all his life. If you know what, hundreds of stories of him doing that. He needed a second run at a number of things, but he did an applied finance degree. And at the time that this terrible phone call came, which was from him, he was an index trader in Hong Kong, living a successful life, doing fantastic work, making fantastic money, everything that we would measure success by. But he had become addicted to cocaine, which is really sadly, I suspect still remains in the world's finance centres, the drug of choice for recreation. Particularly harsh. There have been some stories about the finance industry in particular. And so it had got him. He'd been in Hong Kong for 4 years, and took 2 years for it to get him, and then it got him, and he rang and said, I'm addicted. This place is going to kill me. I've got to get out of here. We brought him home. We packed lots of support around him, but he didn't make it. He was okay for a while, a couple of months, and then suddenly he wasn't, and in the space of a week he was gone. He didn't die of a drug overdose. He died because some of the medications that he was given to support him had opiate residues, and they accumulate in your liver, and they slow your system down, and his heart stopped in his sleep. At home, warm, in his own bed, in the same house with his 3 siblings. There are blessings there, for which I'm grateful. I'm grateful. We'd better talk about something else, or we'll both be crying.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And you've put it all down in this book, which is called Motherling, A Walk. And as you said, we should move on to something more positive from this. You've written the book.
Yes.
You've done the walk. And now the publishing house. Why have you started a publishing house for
Journeys
mature
towards,
writers?
Thanks, Myf. Journeys towards publishing. And can I just say something about the name Motherling? I was walking through the plaza in Pamplona in Spain, and this word motherling, I was having a moment and thinking, why don't we have a word for mothers who have lost? We have foundling for babies, we have widower, so on, and this word motherling came to me. And I now find, after I'd written the book and was ready to publish it, that it is an ancient pre-Shakespearean English word that's dropped out of the dictionaries. So we've adopted it. Journeys to Words Publishing with the Wheelers Centre, has adopted the word motherling, and it means precious mother or gorgeous mother. And I want it to have a new life as the word that describes a special word we deserve. It's a club no mother wants to belong to, but a lot of us do. And it's a word that describes a woman who has lost a child, but is still a precious mother. So Journeys to Words Publishing, it occurred to me in this 10 years that I've spent focusing on my writing, watching and having a great network of writers here and in the United States, that we really don't have a pathway. Mature age writers who've had a life elsewhere and come to their writing late in life really are often overlooked by mainstream publishing, which is not a criticism at all. I'm an economist originally, and that business model in publishing is based on getting youngsters in, getting 25 years writing out of them, a book every couple of years.
Very good point.
You know, a lot of books flatline, but over that 20 years you'll get one or two or three that will make big money. And mature age writers can't deliver on that business model. So what looked like to a lot of people a barrier to entry, to me just looked like an opportunity. And there are thousands of us, even in Australia, there are hundreds of thousands of mature age writers around the world. We are our own circle.
Yes.
You know, we read each other's books, we talk about them, we refer onwards, we buy a lot of books, and we write beautifully. So I went first with modelling, and I'm glad I did, because just about every mistake you can make I've made, but I have great help. I'm doing a Masters of Writing and Publishing at RMIT under Tracy O'Shaughnessy's tutelage, and she's taught me how to make books. So here we go.
Yeah.
Modeling's first, and there's we've got...
What else have you got in the list for the publishing house?
Well, the next one comes out July 21st, and that's a great novel written by Shelley Davidow, a Queensland author. It's called High Infidelity, and it's sort of like Eat, Pray, Love meets Bridget Jones' Diary, an English woman who escapes a shocking marriage to Byron Bay, and begins a journey to self. So these books are about, and there's half a dozen others in the wings, so another one in November, and then 5 scheduled next year.
Jen Hutchison, are you writing a new book?
Yes, I'm writing, I've just finished a family story, a thinly disguised creative non-fiction. It's called a novel. It'll be classified a novel, but it's the 50, 60 year story of a family where abuse has been hidden, and of the fallout and the difficulties that creates.
Jen, if people want to get your book, how do we go about doing it?
Well, we are distributed worldwide, 39,000 outlets around the world by Ingram. And in Melbourne, Readings have us. Hill of Content was our first bookstore.
And then around the country?
Yes, and bookstores around the country. Or you can get it from our website, journeys2wordspublishing.com.
Do you have male writers coming your way as well?
I do. Of the 8 writers we've got in the system at the moment, 3 of them are doing rewrites. One of them is a man, and I've just this last weekend been corresponding with another one. It will happen. There's no gender bias here at all.
Yeah. Is there a theme to the publishing house? Is it? Are there specific things that keep coming up in the books that you're being presented and going with?
It's a really good question, and the answer is yes. It's deliberately called Journeys to Words Publishing because many mature age writers are writing of their own journeys through life, through self-actualization, validation, through reflection, understanding their own lives in the context of the circumstances that have befallen them, whether that's good, bad or indifferent. And so that is the theme. We're focusing solely on the work of mature age writers so that we can bring to the market those journeys to words that are so precious.
Well, Jen, thank you so much for sharing your story today.
Thank you.
Yeah, if people want to read the book, it's called Motherling a Walk. And just quickly, would you recommend I did the walk, the Camino?
I would recommend everybody. You shouldn't be allowed to have a passport until you've done something. It's such a learning environment.
Are there any hairy moments where you felt it was a bit precarious or maybe unsafe?
No, definitely not unsafe. I felt you're wearing a scallop shell on a red braid, which is the mark of the pilgrim. You are received beautifully and warmly, village after village after village, which, for 2,000 years, sometimes with the same families have been receiving pilgrims, and very cared for. Other walkers take care. I walked alone by choice, and I did not at any time, maybe 5 minutes in 35 days, I felt that it was time for me to leave that cafe and walk on. But it was, nothing that I would consider unsafe.
What an amazing experience. I'm definitely putting that on the list. And, thank you for sharing your story today, Jen. That was brilliant.
Thanks, Myf.
Jen Hutchison there, who's the author of the book Motherling and founder of Journeys to Words Publishing, a publishing house for mature writers. And someone's just sent a text saying, wow, I was Googling yesterday trying to find mature age beginning writers. So maybe this is a wonderful step-off point for them. That's great. It's time for me to head on out of here today.
Myf Warhurst on ABC Radio.